What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Lambdas Who Roll Live. I'm here with my co-host Diego. What's up, man?
What's going on, guys? Para siempre.
Para siempre. What's good? How was your week, man? Everything good?
It's good. Just finished up a competition last night. Well, went to go coach competition. A few guys competed yesterday, and yeah, man, it was a nice event. A little too hot though. Everybody was really it was blazing inside. No
Oh, wow.
AC, but yeah, the guys did really well. The guys did really well. Had fun. Um, and had a good time there.
Yeah, I saw AP got gold in gi and no gi. So congratulations. Shout out to AP
Yeah,
for winning.
shout out to Professor AP and all the guys who went out there and
Yeah.
uh, put everything on the line, and it's not easy. So
Yeah, I
you
saw
know,
some of AP's videos and he looked good. He looked really
yeah, yeah,
good.
yeah,
He
yeah.
looked
Moved
really
really
fast.
well, smooth.
Yeah.
You
His
know,
transitions were really fast. I was I was super impressed, man.
yeah. Yeah, so
It's interesting to see. It's one thing to roll with AP in the gym, but then to see him in competition, it seems like he just ups it up a notch a little bit. At least with when he's rolled with me, maybe he's being gentle with me. So,
yeah,
but yeah,
it's nice to see. To be honest, for myself is when he was sparring, when he was going in the, I see the guys make certain moves, and
right.
in my head I'm like, oh no, that's a mistake.
You're done. You're done.
So, it's nice to see the translation from, a classroom to a competition mat. You can tell that, he has, obviously, like, you have to focus as a competitor, so you can tell that it's not the same role, a little bit more focus, a little bit more, efficient, so yeah, he did an awesome job.
Yeah,
Motivating too,
yeah. No, absolutely. There was one moment where he was going for the single leg X. I was like, he's either
Mm,
gonna go for a lock or gonna sweep, and he ended up sweeping and came up on top.
yeah. And
So
it's nice to, again, like, you from, and I know we have another topic to talk about, but from a competition, even as a spectator, you learn a lot,
oh yeah,
because you're
absolutely.
seeing things from the outside, like even
Right.
some guys who are in the competition, they don't, when we're coaching them, they don't see it, they don't realize what's going on, so they're learning something from their path, like what they're going through, and then we're also seeing, a different perspective,
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I saw that Brandon, Milton, Gurpreet, also
Yeah,
competed. They
yeah.
represent the fraternity.
Hey,
So shout out to them too.
Julius, yeah,
Julius,
Julius,
yeah,
Jay,
yeah, there's a bunch of guys from Rostar.
Hosam, Ahmed, yeah,
Yeah, they
man,
got gold. They got gold too. Hossam and Ahmed too, right?
Hosam, man, yeah,
That's what's up.
yeah, those are,
Congratulations, everybody. It's
congratulations,
good
guys.
job, man. Good job. All right, so today, we wanted to talk a little bit about a somewhat serious topic, a phenomenon that it's existed, I guess, even when we were kids, but I guess it's getting a lot more hype now because of social media. There's a lot more means of communications, and it's been brought to a lot into light a lot more than I guess when we were kids. But it's the issue on bullying. So we wanted to talk today about the issue and talk about how we could defeat bullying, right? And I just wanted to share a couple statistics, man, because this, as I was researching, this is crazy. So just to share with you guys some of the statistics um, that were recorded by the National Bullying Prevention Center. So basically, 1 out of 5 children are have reported being bullied at some time in their educational career.
Mm,
And they say that out of those students, 40%, 41% are reporting that they'll be afraid that it happens again. So they're reporting that being bullied at school will potentially happen again. And then they even break it down into the type of bullying that exists: being made fun of, being called bad names, being pushed, being spit on, or being excluded from activities. And that's how detailed the study has gotten. They even talk about the places where people are getting bullied in the school, in the hallways, in the classrooms, cafeteria, school grounds, and even if you're online, you're not even safe from getting cyberbullied. So
That's a
this is a
whole
serious,
different. That's a whole different issue. That's
whole
a
different issue.
whole different thing, man.
But just to put it in perspective, right? If they're saying 20% of students are being reported bullying, I looked up what's the average school size, and it's about 500. They say 528 students in an average elementary school. So from that, if you take 20% of that, you're talking about well over 100 kids are being bullied in that school, right? And then out of that group, 40% of them, so 40 kids are walking around afraid that it's going to happen again. So it doesn't end, right? They it impacts their performance, impacts their confidence, impacts just their experience with school, right? Because you
Yeah.
think about school and you're like, man, it's supposed to be a fun time. I'm supposed to meet friends, socialize, and now you're being put in an environment where now you're afraid to develop yourself. You're afraid to make friends. You're now you're thinking about what are people thinking about me, and now you see the diseases that come about, right? The anxiety, the stress, and you're talking about children,
Yeah.
kids who are suffering through this, right? So what do you think about this, man, when you hear
I
these
mean,
numbers?
this is a big topic. Obviously, an hour or less than an hour is not going to do it justice, but just to touch upon some points, and I'm glad you brought up some of those details. And as far as like coming into a school, it's supposed to be a good environment, and then you're facing all these issues. And if you think about it, like when the kids come in, and let's just take high school for example, being that it's an easier 4 year, right? Let's say you come in as a freshman and you start getting bullied. Um, Now, how does that year or those 4 years,
Impact, yeah.
right? What translates that, right? What kind of effect does that have? And at the same time, when you were mentioning these things, I was thinking about like even younger, let's say younger kids come in and they're getting bullied, and now they're going home. Let's say they go and they talk to their teachers, they go through those steps, and there's certain protocols, right? But in that time, they're still getting bullied.
Hmm.
And now if they go home and they share this feeling, what is a parent gonna do, or what should they do? Like, hey, my kid's getting bullied, okay, like no, they have to go to work. So now it's the kid, and also it translates into the home, because what do you do as a parent, right? Like, do I keep sending my son or daughter at the risk of other things, or
Right.
hey, things have to happen so that, and this is where we're gonna connect jujitsu and all that, right? Because at the end of the day, there's so much benefit to it. But
Right.
continuing with like yeah, man, it's a big issue, man.
Yeah,
And it sucks every time I see it, the videos and the hearing stories or whatnot, man. I hate it. Every time I see a title, YouTube kid getting bullied, I know it's gonna happen, right? And it's frustrating to watch, and like it's just
right.
a huge issue.
Yeah, and I think it touches us more because we're parents, right? We have our own kids, and my kids are in the public school system, right? And when you think about those issues, like what really can a parent do other than maybe speaking to an administrator, the principal, the teachers, having some type of parent teacher conference, maybe with the other parent, and at the parent level, yeah, you might be able to work things out. Hey, your son is bullying my son or daughter, and you kind of resolve it at the parent level, but that doesn't necessarily translate into the kids because they go back to school. They're the ones that have to go back to that
And deal
front
with it.
line, right, and deal with it, right? So just because you're speaking with an administrator or you're speaking with the teacher or even the other parent doesn't necessarily resolve the issue. It might maybe help a little bit, right? And you talk to both children at the same time, and it might maybe dissolve the issue, but it might not, right? Because that necessarily doesn't really equip the children
Right.
with the knowledge to be able to handle it themselves when they're confronted, maybe again with the same individual or maybe with someone new, right? And
Right.
I mean, so jumping into what can we do as parents to give them the strength and confidence that they need so that they can manage those conflicts on their own. What do you
Yeah.
think,
I
man?
mean, there's So when we do certain events when it comes to like the kids and stuff like that, and especially bullying, one of the biggest things that we try to do is make it so that the kids get educated
Right.
and the physical, the self defense, and all that. And again, we'll get into that, but also educating the parents, right? Because think about it, we're growing up in a totally different time, right? So our bullying, like you what we said earlier, right? Like our bullying was different, right? Whether
Hmm.
we've seen kids get bullied, and we've been the on the opposite end, so at the end of the day, it's like you excuse me. So at the end of the day, like making sure that they feel comfortable, making sure that they feel confident, like you were saying, going back, right? So we're facing a whole different issue. So as a parent, we have
Right.
to understand that it's not like the way we used to think about it. It's not closed off to our group of people, right? Because when we used to have fights, when we used to have issues, it used to be within a small group, right? Smaller than
Yeah.
what it is now. Because right now it's all over. Right now I can push a button, and now public school number 1 through 50 know about this one kid getting bullied, at one school, right? And that translates into all the cyberbullying and all that stuff. But there's so much going on that it doesn't stop, right? In that situation, it travels, beyond, right? Text
Yeah.
messages, online, social media, and all that. So as a parent, I want to understand that it's always been an issue, but I also need to understand that it has become an issue that, like, it went too fast, right? Like, think about it. Like, if you tell someone who doesn't know how to use a phone, a parent doesn't know about social media, like, yo, you know, um, something's happening, bullying and all that stuff, then they're not going to be able to understand it, right? They're going to be like, yo, just fight them one on one, and what I'm saying, like, shake hands after, because that's what you used to do, right? Like, you used to confront, like, yo, get this over with, whether you win or lose, you take the L, you go home with a W. But, like, that's it. At the end of the day, like, yo, literally, you used to fight. After that, you used to be like, you good, I'm good, and that's it, because you have to
Right.
continue doing what you're doing at school. So anyway, understanding that this is it is a very big issue. Understanding that the kids need more tools in order to defend themselves, not just physically, but emotionally and mentally,
Right.
right? And there's not too many tools to do that anymore. Like before, I think we used to have, again, a smaller community. We used to have different shows that would, like, help us about different, like, I don't know if I'm maybe TV is different a little bit now, or whatever the case may be, but I remember getting some education on TV, right? I used to get those messages about Dare and about X, Y, and Z, so you used to get little things, now we have Netflix, and it's all nonstop action, that you don't get those things anymore. But
Right.
anyway, the whole thing is that, yeah, we have to understand that it's a different issue. I mean, it's the same issue, but it has grown into something that is very serious, and the kids need something to be able to, again, defend themselves physically, mentally, emotionally, um, and I think that comes from a martial arts training.
Right. Right.
And with that, as again, I'm sorry, I know I'm going on a tangent, but as a parent, so now that I know that, okay, this is an issue, right? I know bullying is an issue. It hasn't gone away. It's gotten worse. Okay, like, what can I bring into my? Maybe I can't help them as a parent. Maybe I can't provide them the confidence, or instill in them the confidence, or the support them in certain ways. That I need to find that avenue, right? And not just let it go away, because again, because as a parent I know that it's a big issue. I need to appreciate that fact, and then start giving my son or daughter tools to be able to go back into the school system and feel comfortable,
Right.
right? Because maybe some parents, don't feel strong enough, because maybe they were bullied, right? Maybe they lost a little bit of self confidence, self esteem, as
Yeah.
they grew up, and maybe they don't know how to share it.
How to deal with
You
it.
know what
Right.
I'm saying?
Yeah.
So honestly, man, jujitsu is definitely a big a big thing when it comes, and obviously I'm saying it as, I'm biased to it, but I've seen it. I've seen the confidence and the development that kids do, and even videos. If you Google YouTube videos, you'll see those kids who have some type of, martial arts training, and a lot of them are wrestlers, jujitsu guys. You'll see the difference, the way that they carry themselves, right?
Hmm.
Excuse me, because like you were saying, right, they have to go in the next day.
Right.
So how do you carry yourself in? How do you walk into a building, right, that's full of people that, even if they're not bullying you, maybe there's one, two, maybe there's just one bully, but now that bully took away your ability to walk into a place and feel safe,
Comfortable. Right.
and amongst a group of people now, because now you're looking at like, oh man, I got slapped in the face in front of 500 people. Now my friends look at me as that I'm not strong. Now the people who don't know
Stop.
me don't want to hang out with me. Now the people, you get me? So there's so many different things that, like, how do you give that child that confidence to walk into the door and be like, yo, I got it, right?
Right.
At Man, I don't even. I hate thinking about bullying at this age, but at like 5 years old, 6 years old, seven, right? At
Right.
like 13, 14, a teenager, like, what do you do, right?
Yeah, and there is like some people might think that, well, they're just kids, they're it doesn't really mean anything, but it really does go a
Facts.
long way. I mean, I'll tell you just personally, I had two situations where both of my kids were were bullied. Okay, they're in the public school system. um, they don't forget about it, right? They know about it, and they can easily convey what happened that day very clearly. It's not like, just a random thing that happens to you and you're like, well, I don't remember what the details of what happened last week. No, these are events that stick with them. Like, even for myself, for example, um, when I think about the whole concept of bullying, maybe at the time I didn't think I was being bullied, but when I think about it, I was like, yo, I was being bullied. I remember in fifth grade, and I told my kids this. I remember in fifth grade, there was a kid in my school that he was a bully. Okay, and he ended up writing my name, Hernan, is Hernan, and he ended up separating both of them, right? So now he put her and Nan, right? So the teacher left. She went outside. She went to go deal with something, and she left us in the classroom by ourselves for a second. And he went up to the board, wrote up my name, her Nan. This is in front of everybody. And then he erases the Nan part, right? The Nan. And he's like, look, you're a her, right? So he's basically saying you're a female, right? And Nan, I don't know if recall, but like in stories, Nan would be a girl's name, right? So Hernan, he's like referring to, look, you're a female, man. That made me feel so embarrassed in front of everybody, right? And at that moment, I'm like, yo, I got to stand up for myself, because I can't let this guy, say this in front of everybody. And you hear people laughing, and you all of a sudden are like, what do I do? I wasn't the type of person to kind of, just sit back and let it happen. Luckily for me, I think our parents were always about, si alguien te dice algo, tú le das duro, right? If somebody says something, you stand up for yourself. So I ended up, and I just started like arguing with the person. And the teacher came in and they heard us arguing, whatever. And then she obviously corrected him, said he shouldn't have done that. Same thing happened in a bathroom one time. We're in the bathroom. This kid said something about our parents. And I turned up, I just punched him dead in the nose. He starts crying, coming outside, and tells the teacher, and the teacher's like reprimanding him. Well, you shouldn't have said that, right? Luckily at that time, the aggressor was the one that was the victim, and I didn't have to get in trouble.
Yeah.
So, but there's a difference, right? A lot of kids nowadays don't have that level of confidence to resolve the issue at that time, nor do they have, or they taught, like, what, you need to stand up for yourself. Now going back to the original story with my kids, I've taught my kids the importance of martial arts, the importance of defending themselves. Obviously, I've communicated to them, not just through verbal support, but also physical, right? Teaching them jujitsu, teaching them how to defend themselves. So my daughter had an issue where one of the kids was bullying her because she was wearing hijab, right? She covers at school, and and I think one of the instances, if I recall correctly, they got into the physical altercation, and she ended up punching the kid. Right? She stood up for herself. My son, he got jumped by three kids. Supposedly his boys, they got jumped by three kids, and in one of them, when he told me the story, and he came back home. He said, he came up to me. I just grabbed him and I just like did a judo throw, just tripped him, put him on the ground, and I pinned him to the mat. I pinned him to the floor, and the other two kids like were looking and didn't want to touch me because they saw what I did to this kid, and I was just holding him down. And after that, the guy calmed down. He got up and they ran away, right? And when he came home, I was like, tell me the details, the takedown and stuff like that. And but I equipped 2 points, right? And I immediately said, well, what happened with the ground and pound? We should have ground and pound or maybe gone for an armbar. But the point is that they were capable of resolving that issue on their own. Obviously, after that, we talked to the teachers, and we were hoping to maybe communicate with the parents. But they don't forget that. Maybe they were obviously they came out on top, defending themselves, using martial arts, using jujitsu. But the point is that those memories will stick with them. And even though they had a positive outcome, obviously the bullying never, didn't happen after that. Actually, the three kids became friends with him again, right?
Gotta watch it six.
Right. But the point is that if you talk to them about it, they remember every detail. So now take that example from a negative perspective, where a kid doesn't have those skills, doesn't have those tools, that will stick with them throughout their entire life, and maybe define who they are, right? They might define, and that's the crazy thing. That's the scary thing. So what do we do?
Yeah, so this is why, like, when you're mentioning all these things, like a lot of these things, if I look at it from, like, I would love adults to know about it, right? Like when we think about bullying, like, as an adult, you don't really need to know about it, right? Like if you already passed your youth stages, for the most part, you don't think of bullying anymore, right? Because it's like, oh, it's something that kids do, right? But even though there's adults who get bullied, right, but they don't say anything, and it's a whole different bullying, right? But at the end of the day, like, you may not recognize it again because you've been used to it, whatever the case may be. But at the end of the day, it's like, educating, or as an adult, being educated and understanding again, like how big of an issue this is, I think is very important when it comes to principals all the way down to teachers. When it comes, because, like, for example, if someone comes up to me and says, "Yo, these kids are getting bullied," like I don't know. I guess the mind switches. The mind switches is a feedback. Yeah, so it's the sorry. So, as an adult and as a teacher, I need to know, because I want to be able to help those who I'm attending to, right? As a principal and teacher needs to know how to. I can't tell a child, like, oh, well, you shouldn't have said this. You shouldn't. Yeah, I mean, but he just punched me in the face and he's bullying me every single day, right? And then sometimes, unfortunately, because I've seen it and I heard it, it's not from my own, where the something like this does happen, and then the person who is defending themselves is getting put into oh, well, you're suspended, and those are rules that I'm not going to get into. This is completely not something that I'm not saying yes or no to, but it's disheartening, right? Because, like, what do you do? Like, as a child, as an adult, how to process that information, right? That if somebody punches you in the face while you're working, and you have to be like, you have to think maybe a little bit differently. You have to process information a little bit differently, right? But as a kid, what do? You're getting bullied. You know how to defend yourself, but you don't, but you can't, because now you're worrying about not being in school for a week or two, right? Or a few days or whatever. So there's so many different things that come into this topic that, but again, I think that is a very big thing. I think it's very important that the adults, from the adult perspective, from the adult side, they start learning all the way down.
Yeah.
From and let's get to I think again that a martial arts does help, and it does give you the confidence. So your children were able to defend themselves and be able to think about that, right? in a more in maybe they wanted to try it too, right? Maybe they're like, oh man, this is my
Let me see if
chance
this
to like
works.
see if this one, right? Yeah, but you're right. Like it gives you, even if it gives them another push to go into the next day or whatever, and maybe and like you said, it helped the three other boys, I mean, to come and to see that, oh man, like let me not do these things, right?
Yeah.
So you know, how do you um, how do kids address that? I strongly believe that jujitsu, it is a great tool for kids. And when we teach jujitsu to the kids, we don't want them to use the jujitsu. As
Right.
crazy as it sounds, right? You don't want to learn a self defense to use it, right? You don't think that. You end up wanting to because you're like, man, I want to see if this actually works or not. But like your mindset completely changes. A kid who feels like, so I'll give you, I guess, and we talked about this thousands of times, right? Like, I always thought that I could fight. I always thought, because I'm like, man, I'm doing kung fu. I
I
got a
got
belt.
this.
I got all these things. I got all the tools, right? I know, like I've seen so many kung fu movies. I have to know how to fight. So it's like, it's like, yo, I know. I thought I did.
Yeah.
So I have a false sense of confidence, right?
Yes.
I thought I knew how to defend myself until I didn't, until I approached someone who he knew how to box, he did his thing, and it taught me really fast, like, yo, you got to be careful as to how you talk, how you present yourself. And I feel like, when you instill like a good martial art, right, into your son or daughter, I think it would give them the way to process that information, even though they still may want to fight, right? They still may want to be like, oh man, yeah, maybe they also like want to show whatever it is, because that's how kids are. But I think like they're gonna be more patient, they're gonna be calm, they're gonna be able, even if they get frustrated, they're gonna be able to, oh wait, I've been here before, I've
Right.
had somebody on top of me, I had somebody trying to, like, punch my face, scratch my face, I had somebody try to throw me,
Yeah.
right? So like, let me react a little bit, differently than someone who is not seasoned or someone who doesn't know, right? um how many kids get hit, get bullied, and then, like we talked about earlier, like their whole self-esteem is shot just from that one incident,
Yeah.
right? So again,
Yeah.
I think, like, yeah.
Yeah. And what you mentioned, like that false sense of security. We trained kung fu for a long time. I mean, I started training when I was 8 years old. You were like 5 years old when we started training, and we went all the way. I went all the way till about 18 years old training um, kung fu. But in the early days, right? You have your schoolyard fights, right? And I remember one incident where I had a fight with Freckle Face Manny. And we were playing basketball, and somebody said something wrong, I guess, and all of a sudden we squared up. I'm in my mind, I'm like, yo, I know kung fu. I got kung fu. I mean, I'm good at kung fu, right? I was good. Because in that setting, you're good, right? You can you have speed, but now you're in a real life situation where now there's emotions, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like a competition. You have
Yeah.
anxiety, you have emotions involved, you have people around you maybe like trying to amp things up, and on top of that is you don't know what the other person knows, right? When you're competing, you're like, okay, we know, it's a taekwondo style, so I kind of can see what's coming. But now you have everything's fair game, right? Somebody could pick up a bat and start swinging, right?
Anything.
And so you have all these external factors unknown to the individual who might be trained, who thinks he's trained, right? And I came out on the wrong side of it, right? I remember, I did my round kicks. I hit him a couple of times. It didn't phase him. And then he ended up like mushing me or something. And I just started crying, right? And then I went home crying, right? We ended up making up, a couple of days later. And now Freckle Face Manny's our boy and stuff like that or whatever. But the important things to take away from that is that even though I was training a martial art, it wasn't the right martial art that would equip that individual or that would equip me to face those challenges in a real life situation, you know, bullying, right? Now, I will say this clearly. I am biased. Coming from a background of traditional martial arts, having a black belt in Tansudo, training Kung Fu for a very long time, I strongly advise parents to put their children into either wrestling or jujitsu, preferably jujitsu. The reason why I say that with wrestling, it because when you train, you're training full blast, right? It's the same thing, similar to the jujitsu. But with the jujitsu, but with the wrestling, you don't really have much submissions. You have a lot of control, right? But let's say if you put on your back, you don't know how to respond. The jujitsu, on the other hand, gives you the full
Give you those
gambit of
tools.
everything, right? It gives you everything.
Yeah.
If they trip you and you're on your back, you know how to defend yourself, starting to play a defensive guard. If you're on top, you know how to control the person from the top, right? And this
Yeah.
is not just for parents. This is not just for kids. This is for any other adult as well who wants to learn an effective martial art for self-defense. Jiu-jitsu is the right thing because it gives
Right.
you the full picture, right? And in addition to not just the techniques, but like you said, Diego, it also gives you the ability to be in control at that moment because you've done it so much, you've repped it so
Yeah.
much in the gym, you've been put under pressure in the gym, you feel that sense of claustrophobia, and you're like, I've been here before,
Yeah.
or that pressure from maybe competing or your teammates being yelling, or even in the gym where it's crowded and you hear the noise, you can easily zone in and focus into that situation that's going on at that moment.
Yeah.
So and if you look at a lot of the videos that are on YouTube, um, where a child is defending himself, it's often with some type of mixed martial art or jujitsu, right?
Yeah.
So
So we have obviously we have a kids program. You know, my son was with Lath was with one of his partners, and he had him in a guard. So the guard, just for those who are listening who may not understand, my legs are wrapped around my partner when we're both on the ground. It's called the guard, right? So I'm closing in, and so he couldn't. It was a very, I mean, it's a normal guard, right? But he was dragging down his arm as well. His partner was dragging, Lay's arm down and pulling down, and he was getting a little frustrated, and you can tell it was building up, right? And you can tell in their faces that, but we don't stop them, right? Like, you
right,
have to keep going. And
yeah,
not because obviously we're being like, no, you gotta, like, you figure it. No, but I mean, you do have to figure it out, because this is a great time to be put to a test, right? And have to figure it out. It's a safe environment, right? We have the coaches there, we all care about each other, students, adults and teachers, everything. So at the end of the day, like, he got overwhelmed and he couldn't get out, and then he needed some time to recover. But when I look at those things, I'm like, man, these are great moments that are happening now, right? Because
hmm
you're getting some type of taste test, whatever the case may be, in this controlled or safe environment.
right,
Now, when you do have, God forbid, like, something happens outside, you have some type of understanding. How many times can I punch, accurately, right? I'm not saying I can punch 1,000 times, but how many times can I punch accurately?
right,
So that way, when I need it on the street, it helps me, right? Because punching a bag is completely different. Punching a board is completely different. And we all should understand that. Obviously, it's completely different, right? But in jujitsu, you are actually fighting a human being that is also trying to, defend themselves, attack, and do all these things, and if you really look at two kids fighting, they're always wrestling, right? It's very rare that, even when they square up and they use their hands, it's very rare that they know how to use their hands. All right, like, everybody puts up their hands, or they put them down, they start swinging crazy and all that. So at the end of the day, it's not really understanding how to fight. I tell my kids, like, they want to play fight and all that, and I'm like, that's great, and you want to play fight, you want to even in the gym, like, when they come in, they want to, like, record movies and play fight like it's, Hollywood and all that, and I understand it's great, but they need to understand that they also need to be efficient, right?
hmm
And I think the jiu-jitsu is the only thing that allows you to do that. But, if so coming into, what tools can they have or can they get? Yes, I also agree. Wrestling, I think, is great because it gives you that, what is it, that confidence, right? Because it is a fast-paced sport, right?
yep,
It's beautiful to know when you have control of someone, right? When you're pinning them down, when you're throwing them, when you're controlling their hips, like, it's a nice confidence builder, right? But when it comes to kids, yes, submissions are very important. More control is important when you're on top, when you're on your back, when, all these different positions. But I do feel that, again, jujitsu is one of the better options, to give that child, um, again, like an understanding of how important knowing how to defend yourself is, and knowing how or when to use it, right? Because you don't want to go out there and start choking kids out, and God forbid something bad happens, and like you want to be able to know when to use that tool. But I don't think you know how to use it unless you're figuring out what tool it is that you need to know, and you're doing that in the gym, you're doing that in practice, you're doing that every single day, or the times that they come from kids to adults, right? So now when the situation happens, you're like, you know what? Let me assess. If I throw this kid right now who doesn't know how to break fall, I may break his arm. If I, take him down and they don't know, okay, so let me wait until, there's a video that I was trying to find, of this one kid who was wearing a book bag, right? Very small, very petite young kid, right? And you can tell his bag was a little, when you stuff all them books and those books are carrying that
Heavy.
book bag down. So you
Hmm.
can tell like it was obviously, the book bag hanging a little bit on his back, right? And the
Hmm.
kid comes up and starts touching him, pushing him, bullying him. And the kid didn't do anything. And you guys can find it on YouTube. I was trying to, but I couldn't catch it. So he wasn't doing much, right? And he was just waiting after the kid started, continuing his, pushing and getting in his face. The kid took off his book bag and started squaring up.
Mm.
Squaring up, he started putting his hands in front of him and, like, getting in good posture and stance. He threw a few punches, I believe. He did some stand up, and then they went to the ground. Once they went to the ground, the kid who was bullying couldn't do anything. He had him in an armbar. The kid defending himself had him in an armbar, and you can hear this kid screaming like, "Yo!" He was talking to his friends. I'm assuming. Tell him to get off of me. He's
Get,
gonna
get
break
off me.
my
Get
like.
off me.
Tell him to get off me, right? He would have broken his arm, or he would have hurt the arm really bad. But if you look at that whole altercation, for me, I wouldn't see any harm done, right? From me knowing jujitsu, because there's no punches, no one is bleeding, no one is walking out with a broken hand, arm, finger, nose, right? So there's efficiency in that. And there's patience in that, because the kid could have easily been like, oh man, he could have been frustrated. He could have also took off his book bag on the first touch and started punching, probably even getting more hurt. But he knew why, because he probably did that maybe in practice, but he probably simulated that probably 100 times, right? Maybe like that moment was maybe 100%, right? Because he had to think about all these things, but he's probably
Hmm.
simulating it like 70, 80% all the time.
Yeah.
So now you gave your child a tool, right? And the opportunity to know how to use it, right? If you see somebody if let's say, a young kid comes up and he's getting bullied by a big guy, right? Someone 3 times his size. If that kid thinks, okay, I know how to fight, so I'm gonna punch. And when that kid punches the big boy and doesn't do any damage, what is that gonna do? That one tool that I thought I can use is not working. So now where do I go? So now what do I do? So now two things are gonna happen. Like, I mean, God forbid, like some more physical from the bigger opponent, right, is gonna happen. And now that child is gonna be like, man, martial arts is no good. Like, it didn't help me.
It didn't work. Right.
So it didn't work. So, I don't want to do anything, right? So now they're
Hmm.
left with absolutely where they're left with nothing.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
So
I agree. And so long story short, I mean, honestly, if I think all of us will go eventually experience at some point in time some type of conflict with another student, or maybe even as an adult with a coworker or something like that, right? Um, what can we do to give the children the confidence and empower them so that when they feel those emotions of anxiety and stress at that given moment, how best to handle it? And I think jujitsu is the best art that you can do it, and not to take away from the other martial arts, the traditional martial arts. We've done them before, but as a father, as an instructor ourselves, as professors ourselves, and as experienced martial artists from other arts, I'd say that you'll find everything you need in jiu-jitsu, right?
Yeah.
um, I think that's going to be the case, you know.
And
So
we'll talk and go ahead. Yeah, take that break and then we'll.
let's take a quick break. And today we're going to do a little bit different, in given that we are talking about bullying, and I'm trying to share this for you guys. All right. All right. Let's take this little break and check out the video.
Awesome, man. That video always makes me smile, bro. Shout
It's
and we're back. Shout out to us to you digital. Those are the guys who put that video together. Awesome job. You know, every time everyone sees it, they love it. So big shout out to you, bros. And actually part of the frat as well. So para siempre, and thank you so much for that production.
Yep. And it's a little plug, but no way saying that you could only find this quality self defense training at Rollstar. Um, but you can, like, if you're in the Hackensack area, I highly recommend that you have, and you're an hermano, or you're not, right, and you have children and you want them to learn an effective martial art. I would definitely go ahead and check out Rollstar. That is definitely a great place for your children to build the tools and skills that they need.
Yeah.
If right, but
Yeah.
if you're not in the Hackensack area, I recommend you look for a jiu-jitsu school that has a really solid kids program, right? And you can Google that. You can even ask us if you need to find out.
Yeah.
The jiu-jitsu community is very close, so we could definitely refer you to the right place for you and your children,
Yeah.
right? So
Absolutely. So I mean, so to piggyback off that, like yes, if you know if there's not a school that you feel comfortable with, or you know because you don't understand, yeah, let us know. Maybe we can point in the right direction.
mhm,
Offer whatever advice, or even we may know the schools that are nearby your area.
right.
Um, but going back to what you finished off before the break, so um, training martial arts in general, right? I think if you can put your children in a martial arts and you see that the instructor is teaching them, and letting them practice for the actual self-defense, right? Then it may work. Then it may give them the tools that we're saying that we're talking about, right? But unfortunately, you know, the martial arts training right now, or what I've seen, and what other students have experienced, it's not that, right? It's not the case. I know in Sansudo when you guys were practicing, and I think it was with the adults and even with like the teens. I think when you guys were doing it, and I was like, oh man, this is pretty cool. When you guys would like come together and like actually spar, sometimes do 2-on-1, and and we used to do that too with the adults. And I think that type of training no doesn't exist as much, right? For a few different reasons, right? From business to liability to whatever it is, and to other arts coming in that are becoming more popular, right?
Mhm.
Wrestling, judo, jiu-jitsu, right? So So to parents who are listening, yes, we are biased to jujitsu and we want to pull into jujitsu. That's for sure. We're not trying to hide that. But at the end of the day, like, we do feel that martial arts in general, right? A good martial arts program, right? And the parent has to be
Yeah.
involved in where seeing like, hey, you know what? Yes, this is the tools that I need for my son or daughter. I see the instructor, doing what I'm looking for, then that's cool, right? It can be another martial art, Muay Thai. Muay Thai is very intense, a very great martial art, right? Very effective, right? And everything else too, right? Because I do appreciate when kids, know how to do forms, know how to be, how to have good posture, right? Kung Fu has helped us with that, right? You spoke about that the other day, right? Like
Mhm.
Kung Fu giving you good posture because of the stance and all that, and now in Jiu Jitsu you translate that, right? So now taking over as far as Jiu Jitsu, uh, um, you know gives you those tools, right? And we explained a little bit about um how that works, right? Because of the whole practice and you being involved and yes, and I'm still a big believer as far as like stand up, right? I always tell the students and even the kids, like, you need to learn how to defend yourself while standing. You have to know how to throw a punch. You have to know what a punch looks like, how to defend it, how to move. Like, even if it's not like the great, like it's even if it's not like your top tool, right? Even if it's not you're not becoming a boxing champion, a kickboxer, right? A Muay Thai champion. But at the end of the day, you need to understand those mechanics, right?
Right.
If I don't know where the power comes from a punch, then I can't defend. And even in jujitsu, when we're pausing and we're stopping and we're trying to, like, defend a takedown, this is we use our hands in these places, right? Same idea. So at the end of the day, I think, like, jujitsu gives you that best option, right? The best tool for that. If there's a jiu-jitsu school that's local, that should be the first choice. And self-defense should be, one of the first choices as well, right? Because everything else is beautiful within jiu-jitsu itself, but we all need to know how to actually defend ourselves, right? Like, I don't feel comfortable, like, knowing certain sport moves if I don't know how to defend myself on the street.
Right.
I think it's very important. That balance has to be there, right?
Yeah.
But I think, again, you get that in jujitsu, no matter what.
Yeah.
And let's talk a
Absolutely.
little bit about, like, how defeating bullies, right? Like, how does that happen, right? Like, what does it mean? Does it mean that it's always an altercation? Because once it gets to the physical altercation, it's no longer bullying, right? Like, you're actually, like, placing your hands on me. You're actually assaulting me, right? You're actually, like, you're committing something that is, punishable, man. Like, somebody gets too close nowadays. Even boxers, and I think the rule still exists, right? Like, a boxer can't use his hands on the street because they're considered weapons or something like that, right? And it's still
We
the
got to
case.
register
All
the
right,
weapon.
I know it happened in the past. I don't know if it's the same, but in the past you couldn't, right? A boxer would get in trouble by law if he used his hands because they're
Right.
considered weapons. So at the end of the day, like, so even that, think about, like, even that, like, not knowing when to use it, right? Because there's other repercussions that can happen. So defeating bullies, like, what does that mean? And I think, like, you know, let's say again, we're into jujitsu, we're biased in jujitsu. We want you to be part of the jujitsu program, not again, not ours, but in general, because we want your kid to have confidence, to be strong, to be okay in any situation, right? But now defeating of the bully, like, I think, with those tools, now they can assess.
Mhm.
They can be self-aware. As an adult, if I know jujitsu and now that I know how to defend myself a little bit, when I'm walking to the car, when I'm walking at night, or whatever, like, you take a quick glance, right? You're looking over your shoulder.
Right.
You're not on your phone 24 hours. Like, even I use my phone all day, right? So, but at the end of the day, like, you know when in a situation where I know that, all right, I just came out of, I don't know, the school or wherever, it doesn't matter where, it's nighttime, there's people outside, whatever the case may be, like, I have to be aware of my situations, my surroundings. I have to feel confident that me walking to the car, me walking to school, me walking to, I have to feel confident I have to feel confident with myself. The kid has to feel confident with his ability or her ability to, hey, if somebody talks to me or tries to, like, bully me, taunt me, make fun of me, that I'm okay in my own skin, right? Because I know that I have some tools that I can use. I don't want to use them now, but I have those tools. So that confidence is getting built. So now, because of the martial arts, jujitsu, or whatever the case may be, now the child is able to, number one, defeat the bully by being calm and being patient and listening to the bully, right? Because at the end of the day, sometimes the bully, they may not even know, like, what they're saying, man. They're probably just doing it as like, hey, I'm looking around and someone laughed at this. Okay, I'm going to do like, sometimes they don't even know what is it that they're trying to do.
Or
Maybe
even the
they're
bully,
just,
or
yeah, yeah,
even the bully is going through their own emotional issues that they're trying to process, right?
yeah,
Maybe something that's from home or something else that's affecting them, that's making them do this, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So at the end of the day, it's like, you're listening, but how can you listen without feeling confident? I can
Mm.
listen to you taunt me. I can listen to you can call me names 1,000 times, right? Because I know that, hey man, once you put your hand on me, then you're gonna see like my name calling, right? Like, you're gonna see that transition. But I'm gonna stay calm for a little bit. I'm gonna be patient because I know I have a tool in my pocket that, hey, like, my first tool is my patience. My second
Mm.
tool is, I'm gonna take you down, right? So at the end of the day, like, they need to, they can build that confidence with that type of, with some type of training, right? um Listening, being patient in that moment for just for a second, just enough to be able to think better than the bully. If so, in the movies, when somebody chokes someone, right, like in a movie situation, and they put their hands around the neck, the first thing that they do is start smacking the hands, start trying to poke and scratch the eyes. You're losing oxygen, you're losing time, you're losing valuable time, right? My the blood is not flowing, so I'm losing, right? But in that whole moment, I could be thinking. I can tuck my chin down, I can start connecting, right? I can start defending. But you can't do that if you don't know what to do. So now
Mhm.
again, so you're defeating the bully by like listening, by being confident, by standing upright, by standing firm. Not standing too close, because then distance management, right? After knowing jujitsu a little bit, or after knowing martial arts, distance management. So where that bubble is, right? My personal space. So now
Right.
the bully may not even be able to touch me because I already know, hey, you know what? I need to stay 2 feet away, arm's length, 2 arms length, whatever the case be, whatever you feel comfortable. But you can't
Right.
do that without some type of understanding. So now you're defeating by that. You're defeating by, like, gaining the space. You're defeating by maybe talking. But how can you talk with a good voice and a strong voice in your posture? Again, if you don't know what that last tool is going to be, right? But you're talking, you're being strong. Maybe the bully backs off, maybe they don't, but now, okay, you start getting into that whole situation. I tell the kids all the time, and the group of kids, like, obviously always be ready. But as soon as someone I'm a big believer that as soon as someone touches you, it's no longer, that's it, man. Like, you are threatening me. You
Right.
are you are making me feel more uncomfortable with just your words. Now you're touching me, so now there's a big problem. Now you cross that line,
Mhm.
right? So I'm a big believer, and I tell the kids, like, once you feel threatened, as soon as somebody touches you, you have to now get into your defense mode. The talking part is no longer there. It's unfortunate, but it's no longer there because like, I don't like it when if somebody gets smacked in the face and they still try to keep talking. Like, no, man, you got smacked in the face, bro. Like, that's
You got to
it.
go for it.
It's unfortunately, they already took it. They already took it. You were okay. You could talk for an hour if you want and try to diffuse, but they crossed the line. So now
Mhm.
you have to figure out a way to defend yourself so that you can diffuse that and get back to your state, your
Mhm.
control, right? Somebody's punching you, you can't be like, wait, let's talk a little bit. No, you have to defend. Then when you defend, then you start saying, okay, here are you. And how many jujitsu guys have done that? If you look at another video, some guy took some guy down, and he held him down. He was like, "Yo, are you gonna stop? Are you done? Are you calm?" Police officers do this all the time. Knee on belly, right? When they're restraining, their the person that they need to control, right? You're controlling, and then you start talking. But you can't do that with that final tool. So going all the way down to talking to physical self defense, jujitsu is jujitsu is
Jiu-jitsu.
the one.
Jiu-jitsu.
Just
Yeah,
do jujitsu, man.
absolutely. Honestly, I
This
mean,
was about defeating bullies, but about training jujitsu too.
it's no, and really, that's the whole point, right? Because again, comparing what you've learned in the past to what you know now, you're not really taught those important, valuable lessons. Is the concept of distance management, the concept of controlling the situation with your voice, right? Your greatest tool is your voice, and that's not to say that you're gonna go tattletale, right? But being confident and changing the tone of your voice and saying, "Hey, stop," right? Hey, before it crosses that line, you're not taught that. I mean, I hate to say it, but that wasn't the
Yeah.
emphasis of martial arts training back in the day, and I wish it was. Probably would have saved myself a whole bunch of headaches. But now that
But
I
you know
know
what?
what I know, but
Yeah, okay, you know.
not to say now that I know what I know now, I as a parent, forget jujitsu, forget like as a jujitsu black belt, instructor, or whatever. As a parent, I would say after cross referencing or checking every single martial art, personally, I'd say at my end result, my advice is put your kids in a jiu-jitsu program.
Yeah,
Bottom line.
absolutely, man. Think about it, man. Even tattletaling. Right now, like if you go and tattletale on something that is important, do it, right? Because you need this, you need help, right? If you see a problem that it's bigger than what you can handle, you need help. You're a kid. You have to tattletale, right? You have to
Right.
get your support. But now, even that action, how is it like? How do the kids take it? So, for example, I don't know anything. I'm scared. I'm nervous. I don't have any self esteem. Now this kid is he's taunting me. He's not. I feel threatened, but I don't know what to do. Man, I need help. I'm gonna go tattletale. The tattletale in that moment, and I'm not saying that is wrong, right? Again, I do feel like you should seek help, but in that but the way that people look at it and the way kids look at it, oh, he tattletaled, he's
Right.
this, she's this, he's weak, she's weak, he's a chicken, whatever the case may be, right?
He's a
But
rat.
now confidently, I know that I don't need to tattletale, but you are threatening me more beyond my tool set.
Right.
You're threat. So now again, but I can't assess that. I can't understand that unless I know my limitation. So I know jujitsu, but somebody comes with me on the street trying to attack. I'm gonna call the cops. I'm not gonna try to do something that I can't handle. But I can't think like that unless I know what I can and what I can't handle. So now the
Mm-hmm.
tattletaling, if as a confident individual, the tattletale is gonna be like, yeah, and
That's
if
my
you
tool.
don't, and if you don't, and if you do this again, I'm gonna say, and if you do this again, I'm gonna tattle on you again. And call me a tattletale, call me a chicken, it doesn't matter. Because if
Right.
if we were to get into something, I know what to do. Now that confidence, when other kids see that, they're like, man, tattletaling is not so bad. Right.
Right.
And again, we gave tattletaling a bad name, right?
Right.
It's
Tattletale.
tattletale. Don't say it. Because there's times in where you have to talk. You can't just stay quiet. You have to be able to tell a teacher, a principal, an administrator, a police officer, whatever the case may be, like, hey, this doesn't feel right, right? But you have to do it in a way that again that it doesn't take away from you,
Right.
right? Because
Right. Good point.
tattletelling takes away from like, oh, you're not man enough, you're not strong enough, you're not woman enough, you're not this, you're not a certain person just because you're telling on me. Like that's not really the case all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if kids in jiu-jitsu program, right, they're fighting and this and that, and they come up to me sometimes like, oh, he did this, she did this, and this and that. Okay, I get it. Is it tattletale? There's times in where I'm like, hey, sometimes you don't need to announce everything. Sometimes you guys can work it out together. But
Right.
there's moments in where they're tattletaling, and I'm like, yes, thank you, because the education now needs to come from someone beyond them, like a teacher or something.
Right.
So, but again, you can't go up to so unfortunately, how many people get assaulted and don't feel confident enough to share it?
Right.
How many people?
Right.
And you just shared statistics from the kids. How many people feel confident to announce it, to say like, hey, I'm getting bullied, or I'm getting assaulted, or
Right. Yeah.
so
That's a great point you make because right, the statistics show that 1 out of 5 kids are reporting being bullied. But those are the kids that are reporting, right? There
right,
could be a lot more. That
who is
number
not.
could be a lot higher because they're afraid to speak out, right? But your voice is one of your most powerful tools, and the beautiful thing about jiu-jitsu, about martial arts, really. Now, this is like summing up the martial arts, about martial arts, especially if you have a solid instructor, a good program, they will give you the confidence for you to be able to speak up. And I agree with you 100% that, we label it as, you're a tattletale, you're a rat. But in reality, we should emphasize on the importance of children having the confidence and trust to be able to go and tell how they're feeling, right? And then the teachers at that point, this is obviously outside of our realm, do their best to be able to resolve the issue and not just kind of brush it off or whatever, or whatever adult or supervisor, whatever it is at that moment. But giving that child that tool to be able to communicate effectively their feelings, really, that's another level of martial arts training. And you know you won't find that experience from just any other sport, right? Like you won't find that if your kid is active in basketball or soccer or playing hockey or whatever it is. They'll develop great physical attributes, right? They'll be athletic, but it really doesn't equip them when they're confronting someone where their person is being, their person, their body might be endangered, right? So yeah, man. Again, jiu-jitsu, man.
Being that you mentioned, I just thought about it where, you know, a teacher, like you just said, they have to go to a teacher or a counselor for that matter. But imagine I mean, and with that, I thought of like, man, the counselor and the teacher and those who are educating should also know jujitsu, right? Because man, if you tell, for example, like let's say you don't know jiu-jitsu at all, and a kid comes up to you and is like, oh, this boy jumped on top of me and I couldn't get him off. In your head, you probably be like, just take him off, right? Like in someone who doesn't understand, they don't understand how frustrating, how scary that is. So imagine like saying, to a teacher, like, yeah, lay down, get somebody on the mount and see how you feel. They'll probably change the perspective, right? Change the idea. So
Right.
again, man, I think like, again, because of the practice, because of everything that we do, it's a great opportunity. You're right, man. Martial arts training, will give, I don't know, we'll give the kids these tools that are much needed, even if it's not to. I think like the kids should join a martial arts program, even if they're not gonna do competitions or like expand on it. I think just being around that environment will also be serve some benefit.
Absolutely. No, I definitely agree, man. And we are at the top of the hour. And
Yeah, man. We could
this is
talk
a
about this for
really,
days.
for days, especially for us. I think we're passionate about this particular topic for two reasons. One, we have children of our own. We're parents, right? And it for us. We value the significance of training or equipping your children with confidence and empowering them with more than just words, equipping them with actual abilities, superpowers to be able to defend themselves. At the same time, we are instructors, right? We have worked with kids, and we see how it improves the children's mindset. I've had children where parents come in and say, I want to put my children here because he's being bullied. I want to put my children here because I want him to build confidence. Year 1, year 2, year 3, year 5, all these years pass, and now this guy went from 9 years old, now 15, now 20 years old, and he's a confident man, right? I've seen kids when I came here to Maryland, and I started the martial arts program back in 2009. These guys were little kids. Now they're in the adult class and they're grown men, super confident, very successful. And I believe with in my heart that martial arts, I'm not going to say jiu-jitsu, martial arts has given them the confidence that they need to rise up. You know, and when you compare them to other kids, you don't really see that. You don't have that sense of interpersonal skills, communication skills, even emotional control to be able to deal with certain situations. So for
You
me,
know, like,
I'm
yeah.
advocating jujitsu, man.
Yeah, man, and I know that we're over the hour, but just real quick, like, and this is not to take away from everything else. Like, all sports give you
Right, right,
a certain development, right? Sports, activities, clubs, all these things are beautiful, and they're going to develop certain aspects of your life, of your mental state, your emotional state, your spiritual state. They're going to develop certain things, but not all of them are going to develop that physical part. When your physical gets threatened, your body changes, your mind changes, it just changes. Imagine playing chess and getting slapped while you're having to move pieces. Like, it'll be a totally different game. You won't think right, right?
right,
So at the end of the day, it's like you have to. So now the martial arts training will strengthen that, right?
right,
Will strengthen that confidence that
and everything
when
else.
now in the world, when people are like trying to go down on you and trying to, like, put you down and trying to, like, make you feel like not make you feel like nothing. Now you've been through a little bit, right? You've been through the training, the jujitsu, the martial arts, where you're whatever that physical, like, exhaustion, right? You felt that, so hopefully giving you a little bit more balance.
Yeah, and again, not to downplay any sports, right? Because we played basketball in addition to training martial arts, right? We played basketball for competitively, right? We were you played JV, we played for high school, we played for the city, so it was competitive basketball. It wasn't just a pickup game in the park in the playground. But this is when has a bullying situation been resolved by playing one on one? Right?
Right.
You get a bully. He's like, I'm about to beat on you. Hey, hold on, let's play one on one, and whoever
It
wins, we squash it. It
was
doesn't
like
happen.
back in the day when we used to dance,
We
like
do the
one
dance
on one.
battles,
The
right?
bullying was a dance, the
Right. It
battle,
doesn't.
the dance
It does.
battle.
That's Key and Peele type of thing, right? It doesn't happen, right? But those type of situations, are resolved successfully through some type of martial arts, some type of awareness, and that's given, that's learned through martial arts. And again, I hate to say it, but jujitsu, man,
I mean, yeah, I mean,
jujitsu.
look, man. If it, not to, we've been
Not to
training.
sell it too hard.
We've been training for over 10 years. So at the end of the day, it's not like, and we're saying it. We're actually saying, like, hey, we're biased to jujitsu. Like, we're not trying to, like, but we do know that if you were to step on the mat, you'll see it for yourself. Like, there's no hiding behind it, right? There's no, at the end of the day, it can be proven, right? We can show you, type of thing.
Right.
So yeah, man. I mean, there's so much to talk about. There's so much to talk about regarding to bullying. We're gonna continue creating information and programs, events, all that stuff, catering to this topic. So please continue to follow, both programs and our website. Because, and if there's ever a need to bring an anti-bully program to a school, to a public school, as an assembly or as a program, a one-day thing, whatever the case may be, we're available, and we would just love for this to spread, right? Because again, man, it's a really big issue that needs and deserves a lot of attention.
Absolutely, I definitely agree, and that goes for New Jersey, and that goes for Maryland or the Virginia, Pennsylvania area. Any these, even Delaware. If you're hearing this, and you're in that area, this
Yeah,
New Jersey, PA, New York region, by all means, let us know. Um, any final words, or was that good?
man. Yeah, man. We're already over. So thank you so much for making this happen. And yeah, I know that we can make a part two soon.
Yeah, we definitely will, and we'll build up more. And if there's any questions that you have, please share with us, and we'll answer them on a subsequent session. Or if you have any particular topics you want us to talk about, please share with us. Let us know, and we'll build around that. Shout outs again to the brothers who competed yesterday. Congratulations, you guys did an amazing job. And that's it. We'll sign
Yeah.
off. We'll see each other next Sunday. So with that, para
Us.
siempre. All
Para
right.
siempre, guys.
Os.